این سفر همونجور که اشاره کردید
The commitments are unambiguous. Clause 1 constitutes the cornerstone of the mutual obligations, specifically an end to hostilities on all fronts, including in Lebanon. For our part, we have fully upheld our obligations. However, the other party was required to compel its allies, notably the Zionist regime, to cease fire in Lebanon. Should the other side refuse to uphold its end, the Islamic Republic of Iran will not hesitate to take corresponding reciprocal measures.
Iran warns that Israeli strikes in Lebanon are putting the memorandum of understanding at serious risk ahead of high-stakes diplomacy. Tehran is threatening reciprocal measures over Israeli attacks in Lebanon, raising the temperature before fresh talks. An aide to Araghchi says ceasefire violations could jeopardize the final round of nuclear negotiations. Iran says the memorandum of understanding is now in danger as Tehran draws a red line before upcoming U.S Iran talks in Switzerland.
این سفر همونجور که اشاره کردید
As you noted, this visit was originally scheduled for Friday to formalize the signing of the memorandum of understanding. However, since the agreement was signed digitally by the two presidents, the meeting no longer held the same urgency. This visit is, in effect, dedicated to monitoring the implementation of the counterparty's obligations. Every understanding, and indeed every agreement, is ultimately tested at the implementation stage. Given our past experience with the other side's breaches, we must naturally remain extremely firm and resolute in our demands throughout this phase. Article 13 of the Memorandum of Understanding is explicit. Negotiations toward a final agreement are contingent upon the commencement and sustained implementation of commitments under Articles 1, 4, 5, 10, and 11. Regrettably, that condition has not yet been met. Consequently, during this visit and the accompanying negotiations, our primary objective is to demand the full execution of the other parties' undertakings and to seek clear clarification on exactly how they intend to meet those obligations. The commitments are unambiguous. Clause 1 constitutes the cornerstone of the mutual obligations, specifically an end to hostilities on all fronts, including in Lebanon. For our part, we have fully upheld our obligations. However, the other party was required to compel its allies, notably the Zionist regime, to cease fire in Lebanon. In this regard, they have clearly failed to meet their duties, constituting a flagrant violation of the ceasefire terms. As for the lifting of the naval blockade and, correspondingly, the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, those commitments have indeed been fulfilled. A memorandum of understanding is a cohesive package. It is not a collection of isolated provisions. If any one element or commitment remains unimplemented, the entire agreement is compromised. This is all the more significant given that Clause 1 is the most critical pillar of the entire arrangement. In light of this, the other side must take the necessary corrective measures without delay. Otherwise, the integrity of the entire understanding will be placed at serious risk. We did not enter into this commitment for it to remain unfulfilled. This agreement was reached after weeks of intense negotiations, facilitated by mediators, built on Iran's good faith, and, most importantly, underpinned by our national strength and unity. Naturally, we will spare no effort to ensure its full implementation. However, as we have consistently stated, this is a commitment in exchange for a commitment. Should the other side refuse to uphold its end, the Islamic Republic of Iran will not hesitate to take corresponding reciprocal measures.
Hezbollah released a new video featuring photographs of Israeli soldiers killed during recent fighting in southern Lebanon, according to RT. The video carried the message, "If you're going to withdraw anyway, why be the last to die?" in an apparent psychological warfare campaign. The footage was published hours after deadly clashes reportedly inflicted fresh losses on Israeli forces operating in southern Lebanon. Its timing drew significant attention as Israeli media reportedly described the day's battlefield developments as a disaster. 4 IDF soldiers were reportedly killed after Hezbollah targeted an Israeli tank operating inside Lebanon on June 19. Among those killed was the commander of the 52nd Battalion, who had reportedly assumed command only days earlier. Hours after the tank strike, additional Israeli casualties were reportedly recorded during continued fighting in the same area. 5 more Israeli troops were reportedly wounded in a separate Hezbollah drone attack, according to media reports. The losses came as Netanyahu's cabinet continued rejecting calls to withdraw from Lebanon despite the reported Iran peace deal. The high-stakes U.S Iran memorandum reportedly called for an immediate end to hostilities across the Lebanese front. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is reportedly still working to influence the contours of the final U.S.-Iran agreement, determined to shape its outcome even as the framework moves forward. His efforts have continued despite President Donald Trump already signing a memorandum of understanding with Tehran, signaling that the Israeli leader does not view the interim document as the final word on Iran policy. Under the terms of the memorandum, the agreement has triggered a 60-day negotiation window between Washington and Tehran, during which both sides are expected to hammer out a comprehensive final pact. Netanyahu is said to believe that Iran will ultimately refuse to accept meaningful, enforceable limits on its nuclear program, a conviction that fuels his skepticism and his determination to press for tougher conditions. According to coverage by CNN, the Israeli leader is actively trying to shape the debate inside Washington, D.C. over the emerging deal, seeking to influence how American policymakers and the public perceive its risks and benefits. Reports say the Prime Minister is working through conservative media figures and pro-Israel lawmakers in Congress, leveraging long-standing relationships to amplify criticism and raise doubts about the agreement's terms. Prominent pro-Israel podcaster Mark Levin has denounced the deal as a slush fund for reconstruction, arguing that the financial components risk empowering Tehran rather than constraining it. Netanyahu is also expected to lobby friendly senators directly to voice concerns and push for stricter oversight, using Capitol Hill as an additional line of pressure on the Trump administration as negotiations with Iran continue. Republicans angrily condemned President Trump's interim deal with Iran as a mistake, arguing that the pact contains concessions that could embolden Tehran and that the administration moved too quickly without securing ironclad guarantees or congressional oversight. The administration hailed the 14-point memorandum of understanding as a major win, intended to end the 10-day conflict, presenting the agreement as a diplomatic breakthrough that prioritizes de-escalation and the rapid return of stability to a volatile region. Republican Senator Bill Cassidy said, quote, "Reagan is rolling over in his grave. Iran's nuclear ambitions were not curbed, and they have learned that threatening the Strait of Hormuz works and will undoubtedly leverage it in the future. Now, Iran gets to build brand new infrastructure under this deal. Before the war, the Strait was open, Iran was being crushed by sanctions, and 13 service members were still alive. Now, 13 Americans are dead, families have paid billions at the pump, sanctions will be lifted, and the bombing has stopped. This is the worst foreign policy blunder in decades," unquote. Trump administration officials emphasized the downblending of enriched uranium as an important safeguard, claiming that converting higher enriched material into forms less suitable for weapons reduces immediate proliferation risks and serves as a verifiable confidence-building measure. But critics counter that Trump's Iran deal accomplished less than the 2015 nuclear agreement negotiated under President Obama, saying the interim pact lacks the long-term, legally binding restrictions and intrusive verification mechanisms that defined the earlier accord. Another prominent Republican, Senator Ted Cruz, described elements of the pact as ill-advised and urged that further details be disclosed and scrutinized, warning that without greater transparency and stronger enforcement measures the agreement could prove dangerous rather than stabilizing. Republican Senator Ted Cruz said, and I quote, "What has been released so far suggests that, unfortunately, the president is getting, I think, very poor advice when it comes to this deal. History teaches that giving billions of dollars to theocratic lunatics who want to murder us is a bad idea," unquote. Although some Republicans who previously backed military strikes on Iran are now shifting to support the peace framework, their changed stance reflects a calculation that a structured agreement could better protect U.S. interests than an open-ended conflict. Several prominent GOP figures, including Lindsey Graham, have indicated that the deal could be beneficial, suggesting that if the framework is properly enforced and tightened, it may offer a realistic path to de-escalation and regional stability. A major point of contention in the agreement remains the section dealing with Lebanon, where unresolved issues about Hezbollah and cross-border attacks have made this track particularly sensitive for both Washington and Jerusalem. The Memorandum of Understanding calls for an immediate and permanent ceasefire on all fronts, including Lebanon, setting an ambitious goal to halt hostilities across multiple theaters at once. However, the agreement does not spell out how such a ceasefire would be enforced or how armed proxies would be disarmed, restrained, or deterred, leaving key enforcement mechanisms vague and open to dispute. Netanyahu has reportedly told Trump that Israel does not consider itself bound by these terms, insisting that Jerusalem retains full freedom of action against threats on its northern front regardless of what Washington and Tehran sign. The Israeli Prime Minister has also declared that security zones in Gaza, Lebanon, and Syria will be maintained, signaling that Israel intends to preserve forward defensive positions and deterrent postures despite the new framework. Defense Minister Katz has reinforced this line by saying Israeli forces will remain in these security zones for unlimited time, underscoring Israel's readiness to sustain an extended deployment if leaders deem it necessary for national security.